Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on the Pathfinder Lost Omens Mwangi Expanse book. This is a campaign setting for Pathfinder 2nd edition and was released by Paizo Publishing. And Paizo actually sent this book to me for review purposes. However, they are not influencing the video, they're not scripting it, they're not pre-screening it. So the opinions that I express in this video are 100% completely and totally my own. Now, I'm only going to be showing a few bits and pieces of the book in this particular video, sort of some of the stuff that was like my favorite locations, or I'll give you a little bit of an idea of like the formatting for things. But if you want to see like a full flip through of the book, because this is a 300-page book, so if you want to see a full flip through of it, let me know in the comments below, and I will be certain to do that as a follow-up video. When I started thinking about how I wanted to do the review, it was honestly something I could almost sum up as, it's a great book, it's really well written, I love it, you should check it out. But I want to give at least a little bit more than that, but I guess spoiler alert, I really like this campaign setting book. So we're just going to go through just a little bit here. Like I said, I'm not going to do a full flip through in this video because it is a 300-page book, but there's a lot of really great stuff in here, and this book is largely, like 90% of it is flavor, and the Lost Omens product line has been primarily all about like world building, and it's sort of a GM player like neutral kind of product, at least for the most part. This being a campaign setting is a little bit more slanted towards game masters and players. But as a player, you can still pick this up and get lots of really cool ideas for some interesting characters that we have here. So, again, there's a lot of great information within this book. The timeline section, you get quite a bit of information on some of the different eras, like the Age of Legends, Age of Darkness. So, again, a lot of really cool stuff in the timeline. I'm not going to go through it all here, but yeah, it was sort of really interesting to sort of go through and read. And I'm kind of like a sucker for like a really well-established or well-written, backstory or history of the location within campaign settings. So to get, several pages of just the setting's background, I really liked. Next we get into like the people of the Mwangi and, or Mwangi, sorry. And these are just like your so it starts off with like your common ancestries from the core rulebook. So we got like some different human groups, and you get a little bit of information from them, some of the stuff about their culture. You get little sidebars for like character names, which is really useful for me because I'm bad at names to begin with. But my favorite part of this would have to be the sort of like the non-standard, or not the non-standard, but the non-human ancestry. So we have a few different types of elves, including the Allege, but we also have something that I kind of like was the fact that they had the ones that I interacted with when I went through the second chapter of the Age of Ashes storyline, the Ikuje. So for me, like, because I had recently played through the chapter of the Age of Ashes adventure path that took place in the Expanse, like when I came across something that I recognized, it was kind of cool because I don't really know a lot about the Pathfinder setting, like the world of Galarian, because I'm coming into Pathfinder pretty new, right? So I really got into Pathfinder with the release of 2nd edition, went back and got some 1st edition stuff, but I'm sort of learning about the world for the first time. So it's just, I like seeing some of, some things that I recognize. But I'm going to show you my two favorite, cultures, I guess you could say, from this book right now. So the first one is this group of dwarves known as the taroulo. So these are sort of, I guess, like mountain dwarves. So you could just sort of leave it at that, but they have a really cool backstory. I'm not going to get all into it, but they sort of formed as a society, I guess you could say, coming together to grant the requests of a dying sky dragon to take it back to the land in which it was born, and they sort of set up a residence there as well. But what's really cool about them, again, so an idea of like the formatting for especially the non-human ancestries, you get quite a bit of information here. So we have a little bit about their background, history, appearance, and so the appearance about these guys is really, really cool. So if you're looking through, you can sort of see that they have really interesting sort of, hair design, hair color. Now that's not natural, it's not magical, but what they do is the valley that they live in, the valley that they took the Sky Dragon's body to, occasionally sort of fills with this mist. And the properties of the mist are important for them to engage in this ritual where they basically, like, they dye their hair and their beards. And they will do this multiple times throughout their life, but when they dye it, what they do is they actually dye it in a pattern that resembles the sky during the most important or pivotal moment of their existence. And again, that will change as time goes on, right? So you'll have, you know, they'll look different, you know, they'll have different colorations and patterns as time sort of progresses, which again, I think would be really, really cool. An adventure idea that I had with this would be to have the player characters sort of, you know, come to their settlement, help them with something really important, you know, defeat maybe some sort of creature that's menacing them, or just something where the player characters play a very pivotal role, and have this NPC that they meet, and have his, you know, hair and beard, or her hair and beard, colored in a certain way when they first meet. Be sure to describe what the sky looks like before this climactic, you know, event takes place. And then the next time they come back later on, they can re-meet this NPC who's actually re-dyed their hair and beard to resemble what the sky looked like when they first either met the player characters or when they were part of whatever the pivotal thing was that the characters were there to interact with them for. So I just think that would be just a really cool little thing to throw in there. And it was something, like I said, it was just an immediate idea that came to place. But again, just a really kind of interesting, creative take on, you know, a standard mountain dwarf. So I love that. So you also have some information on, so they sort of have like a sorceress, you know, option here for them. So they actually have access to like the worm-blessed bloodline, because their, you know, background is intertwined with the Sky Dragon. And so it gives you sort of the information there. But we also have like their culture, relations, so sort of how they deal with other, you know, they're like essentially like their neighbors. And then we also have some locations that you can visit that are important to them, either part of their, like their settlements or important locations to their culture. So I got, again, information to sort of visit each of those locations, which is really, really cool. And then each of them will also have an NPC at the end of their description. And this NPC, it doesn't give them the stats, right? Because this is a book that players could be picking up as well. But it does give their alignment, their gender, their ancestry, and their class and current level. Again, you could always tweak that as if you want. But they also are written, like, so they have a huge, like, you know, full page, you know, write-up about, you know, who they are, sort of their backstory, stuff like that. It's really, really cool. And the backstory, the stuff that's written here, can help you actually flesh out their stats if you wanted to stat them for the players to interact with in your campaign. So, like, they're one of my favorites, but my second favorite from this book would have to be the Matanji orcs. And this was, like, when I first started reading through these, like, I thought these were so cool. So these are a group of orcs that are sort of different from what you expect, like, typical orcs to be. Now, they're both, you know, they're sort of known for their strength and, you know, stuff like that. But these guys are all about fighting off demonic presences and incursions. So they can be used for, like, exorcism if there's demonic possession, or if there's, like, a portal that opens up from, like, the abyss and, like, these demons start pouring out. These are the guys that you want there. Now, because they are so intertwined with demons throughout their culture's history, they actually have a racial feat, or an ancestry feat you can take called Demon Blood Frenzy. So for this one, you have to have the Tusk ancestry feat. So you have to be able to have, like, the Tusk for, like, the bite attack, basically. And so you have the Tusk unarmed strike. You can use this once per minute. And the trigger is you successfully strike a living creature that has the Fiend trait with your Tusk's unarmed strike. So it says here, just the taste of fiendish blood. So it has to be a living creature that has the Fiend trait. So you strike them with the tusks, and the taste of blood is enough to basically give you, it gives you quickened. So it gives you, like, an extra action that you can take, but you have to use them for either the tusk strike, stride, or step. So They can kind of go into a little bit of a blood frenzy if they, bite someone with fiendish blood. But again, just really, I just love the idea of them. And like, these are not sort of like the hot-headed orcs that you're kind of familiar with, where they take things as insults really easily. These guys are more in tune with who they are, and they're comfortable. They don't, like, if you try to insult them, they'll usually laugh it off unless you really push for it. So again, I like that kind of about them. Some of them can be addicted to demonic blood and the rush that they get from it. So there is actually a little thing on fiendish addictions there. It also gives you information, the elves did as well, on how like half-elves or half-orcs are sort of like what their role in society is. But then we have, again, culture, relations, faith, some locations and settlements to explore. And then we have Morklav Hornbreaker. So this guy is awesome. So he is a male, lawful good orc sorcerer, level 15. So that doesn't sound like a lot, right? And this was the background that I was like the most drawn to in the book. They're all really good, I have to say, but I really love this guy's here. So Morklav was actually born into the nobility. So in the early years of his life, he was very pampered, didn't know like hardships or what life was like outside of the walls of the settlement that he lived in. But eventually he decided that he wanted to learn more. And he left, and he was no longer living that pampered or spoiled life. And while having to deal with the actual hardships of the outside world, the demonic blood that was lying dormant in his body, again, because of these orcs' strong connections with demons, it actually awakened in the form of like the demonic sorcerer's bloodline. So he actually went to several different cultures and tried to learn about, the sorceress abilities and what it meant to have these abilities, and learn different things from different cultures, and sort of ended up deciding that, he wanted to, fight and keep the world safe from demonic incursions. The name Hornbreaker actually came to him when he was engaged in this battle with this Nabasu demon, and he sort of single-handedly ended the fight with the demonic incursion that occurred, led by this Nabasu, when he grabbed the Nabasu by the horns and ripped the horn, like broke the horns in half with his bare hands. And from that point on, like they retreated, or he killed the Nabasu with them. And then he earned the title Hornbreaker. So like Hornbreaker was not the name he was born with. It was the name that he got when he performed that feat of strength. So just from the background, we know that he's also fathered a ton of children. Now, the interesting thing about that is that a lot of the children that he's fathered have been born in like twins or triplets. So there could be something there story-wise that might make for a very interesting adventure to sort of build around. Yeah, so it actually gives you a lot of, like I said, information about him. It doesn't give you everything, right? Like, it doesn't tell you the specific spells or all the specific feats, but it gives you some very important information with the background that, as a GM, you could use to stat out the character. So, for example, we know that he's a sorcerer. We know what the alignment is, but we know that charisma would be important because he's a sorcerer. But we also know that he has a very high strength. So strength would also be a very important attribute for him. And it would be well above average considering the things that he's done. So, like I said, you get some information there that you can really use to build the character up. It's not going to give you everything, but it gives you some of like the really sort of key things that you may want to consider if you want to flesh them out and design them for use in your game. So I just thought that was really cool. You also get some new ancestries that you can play as well, including the Anandi, which are these shape-shifting spiders. You get the Conrasu. I might be pronouncing that wrong. These guys are really cool because what they are is their bodies are actually just like these small spherical orbs that look like the night sky, but they have these wooden constructs that they sort of grow around them that forms their body. And if the construct is destroyed, then it can lead to the actual, like the sphere dying as well. So again, just a really interesting, really cool concept. Now, again, I don't know if this is based on actual folklore or not, but it's really, again, interesting and cool nonetheless. You also have some gnolls in here as well. I think gnolls are sorely underrated as monstrous humanoids, and it's really cool to see them here as player character options. My favorite ones would have to be the ant gnolls, so these like halfling-sized or goblin-sized gnolls. I don't know, I love the artwork there. I just think it looks really, really cool. And again, it's nice to see a little bit of range and diversity within like the Knoll ancestry as well. So again, really, really cool stuff. The Galomas are also, I don't know how to describe these things. They look basically like sort of a weird cross between like a human, a horse, and a spider with like the eyes. So like those are their eyes. They have sort of like a horse-like head, humanoid body, maybe-ish, because they have certain feats you can take that can sort of change them drastically. But again, really, really cool stuff. Gripply, so you can play the frog people, which again, I love because I think the Gripply are super awesome. And we have the Shisks. So these are humanoids that have like these bony quills that actually grow out of their skin. They don't have hair, but they have like different thicknesses of quills that they can have. They may be used as weapons for depending on the heritage, or they could just be sort of, again, just sort of something that sort of gives them like their unique look kind of thing to them. But anyway, really, really cool stuff. And then we have some other things in here as well, other ancestries that you could choose from other books, such as the advanced, or not the advanced, but the Ancestry Guide or the Lost Omens Character Guide. So again, just some really cool stuff in here overall. We also have some new gods in here. So my two favorites, again, would have to be the Ravenous King, but then we also have, a little bit later here, we also have Walkenna. And Walkenna is the God King, and unlike the rest of the gods, which are sort of, you know, I kind of lost exactly how I wanted to say that, but unlike most deities that work from the distance, Walkenna, he actually exists on the material plane as the leader of the city-state of Mazali. And so he's sort of, it's kind of like the Egyptian pharaoh concept. Instead of him being like, you know, the living embodiment of the gods, he is a literal god and an undead or an undying god at that as well. And he's lawful evil, so he's kind of cruel. He doesn't view, you know, the sanctity of life the same way that, you know, people that aren't immortal gods would, or undead gods especially. So within his city-state, they're very fond of recycling, we'll just say. So if you're a loyal inhabitant or you're a fallen foe, you can still be brought back as an undead servant to, you know, the God King and his minions. So again, just really, really cool stuff in there. So I love that about it. We also have some locations to explore as well. Lots of interesting locations. Again, my favorite one here would have to be, I hope I didn't pass it, which I did. We'll just go back here for a second. My favorite of some of these, you know, locations would be the ruins of Ko, and this is like the crashed remains of a, you know, magical flying city. You know, from sort of history and lore, it crashed to the, you know, the surface below, and the magics that, you know, were that inhabited the city, or that was part of the city before it crashed, has sort of created these weird crystalline structures that you can sort of see throughout the, you know, the ruins, and as well as these strange crystalline monsters. So again, another adventure idea I think would be really cool to look through would be, or to go through, would be to have the player characters explore this location, maybe try to retrieve one of these crystalline creatures to bring back for study, or something along those lines. You know, like the Fields of Glass. Just again, really, really awesome stuff. And then we get some settlements here. So we have some actual fully sort of fleshed out, developed settlements. So before we had some adventure locations that you could use, but these are actual like, you know, settlements that have, you know, large populations. These would be like the population centers, because there's a lot of, like, you know, locations to go to, but there's, you know, kind of sparsely populated. I don't want to say pinpoints of civilization in an unforgiving wilderness, but it's kind of pinpoints of civilization in an unforgiving wilderness. The format for the settlements, though, I think is really, really great. So we're just going to look at Blood Cove as an example, and then we'll sort of get to, like, my final thoughts here, because the rest of the book is, you know, these locations, and a few creatures which we'll show here as well. But Blood Cove we have as a neutral evil city, so it's a settlement 9. So that sort of gives you an idea of some of the equipment that you can find there. The government type, so this is the Grand Admiral, Secret Syndicate, and then we have the population, which is predominantly humans, but then you have some dwarves, elves, goblins, and other. So other could be any of, like, the rarer ancestries as well. Religions, so it gives you the different religions that are practiced there, including some of the standard ones, some of the ones unique to this location. So threats here, so things that you may encounter or things that may be going on that you may be caught in the middle of. There's pirates, there's agents of some, like, societies, secret societies, turf wars, and aquatic monsters. This one here has trade connections, so the pirates of Blood Cove use unique methods in acquiring items to sell. The city has items up to level 15 available for purchase, but anything higher than level 9 must be acquired outside of the city and thus requires 3d6 days for the items. So again, sort of an interesting thing to do if the players go there to shop. We also have some NPCs listed below, important NPCs for the settlement. So we have Hearthwick Berzoni, so chaotic neutral human male corsair, level 13, Grand Admiral of Blood Cove, so he's sort of like the city's leader, a mostly defanged city ruler, so it gives you a little bit of information there as well. We have Erwin Harvicus, a neutral male human druid 9, leader of the druid circle, keeping the mangroves from swallowing Blood Cove, so you sort of like the location sort of outside of it there. We have Malika Fen, a neutral evil female human ranger 8, head of the Aspis operations in the city, and disgruntled ex-Pathfinder, so a former member of the Pathfinder Society. And then we have Kunari Mobo, so a neutral female human merchant, level 8, retired free captain that maintains a major pirate trade network. So again, a lot of really good information just within that little stat block there. We also have the city's crest or emblem or flag. And then we have the resources. So this one, you can find alcohol or drugs, weapon or armors, grain, fruits or vegetables, jewelry, lumber, luxury goods, magic items, which is covered sort of by that trade connections, mercenaries, seafood, ships, and spices and salt. And you get a lot of information on the settlements. So we have, a little bit of information about the city itself, life in the city, which you actually, again, you get quite a bit right up on, the people of the city. So what, you can sort of expect there in terms of their culture. In this case, we have some of the organizations that work within it. So we have the Aspis Consortium, is a trade organization with roots embedded deep within Blood Cove's foundation. So some call them ruthless profiteers, others ambitious entrepreneur. So yeah, sort of have those there. You also have the free captains. So these would be like kind of like the pirate captains sort of thing. And we also have an NPC, so we have Hearthwick Berzoni, so we have, again, some more information about him if you really wanted to develop him a little bit further. Information on exploring the city with some locations of note to visit within it or in the nearby vicinity. And yeah, so again, really cool stuff, and you also have like the locations, maps, and everything. So again, you have some really cool locations. Now again, my favorite would be Mazzali. This is the city-state with the the undead, the child-sized God King where he resides. And yeah, I really love this one. This one here is sort of banned outsiders. So if you are not a native to the Mwangi Expanse, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get information there, which could make, again, for a really interesting adventure where the characters have to sort of infiltrate the city, try to learn what they can about, something that what they were sent there to do, and have to sort of deal with trying to hide who they are and or dealing with like the negatives to their social interaction skills when they're within the city. So again, really, really cool stuff. And there's lots of, again, really well done, really well written settlements. I'm not going to get into all of them here, but the one with the God King, that's my personal favorite, and the one that, again, I would love to run an adventure in. And then we also finally have towards the back of the book here, we have some new creatures. So this is like the bestiary section. That gives you a list of monsters that would be common or you could encounter in the region. They're not all contained in this book, so some of them are from the Bestiary 1, Bestiary 2, or from some of the adventure paths. So we have some here that will list adventure path, what the adventure path number is, and what page that they're on. So instead of going through like, Age of Ashes, whatever, it tells you that it's adventure path 146 and on page 86 of that particular book. So but here we have some of the new ones that are introduced here, or some that are just reproduced because the Anandi, they have some of them in the Lost Omens, or not Lost Omens, but the Age of Ashes adventure path as well. But we got some of the Anandi there. We have these giants that their eyes are actually located on the bottom of their feet. So They can walk, they can walk upright normally and have limited senses, around them. However, if they need to sort of get their bearing, then what they'll do is they'll actually do this like handstand and then aim their feet wherever they want to look. I just, again, think that's really kind of interesting and cool. They also can burrow, which is interesting, and they are giants, so again, they can also swallow people whole if they want to. We have the Boloko, which are sort of like these crocodile-like fey creatures. Again, really cool stuff. We have the Sharukas. These are like the baboon humanoids. They were pretty prominent, at least in the first couple of chapters of the Age of Ashes storyline as well. Then we have the Grootslang. Now, this guy is awesome. So one of the groups of humans detailed, they actually like worship elephants. They sort of view them as like these conduits of wisdom. They kind of worship them almost as gods. So I think, again, an adventure concept that would be kind of cool to do would be to have the players have to go to one of these, groups of humans that worship these, elephants as like divine beings. But these particular ones have been maybe raiding or causing problems, and it's because of the fact that, they actually worship this corrupted version of like, this combination of like elephant and snake monster. Just, again, really, really, really cool. And again, it has like the little sidebar there called Unwise Creations, because the elephant worshipping peoples view these elephants for their wisdom and composure, and they take sort of they structure their lives around what elephants can sort of teach them, even if it's indirectly. But these ones here, again, are corrupted versions of that. I think it would be really cool to run an adventure based around that kind of thing. And again, you get all kinds of interesting, unique creatures that you can use for your games as well. So, again, I'm not going through a full flip through because it's just such a large book. But if you want to see me flip through it in full, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to do that. As far as my review portion goes, this is a great book. One of the things that I just kept happening to me when I was just flipping through it for the very first time is I would see something, a piece of art that caught my attention, and I immediately started coming up with, or wanted to come up with some ideas for adventures, campaigns, or campaign arcs, sort of revolving around them. And it just really got my creative juices flowing. And not all the campaign setting books that I've, had or reviewed in the past have really triggered me quite in this way. So I got a lot of inspiration just from looking through this book, and that's I consider that to be pretty high praise. Overall, like I said before, it's very well written. Lots of great detailed information. There's so much flavor in this book, and I'm someone who's a really big fan of flavor text and fluff, I guess you could call it as well. More so than just having books filled with new rules or new classes or new feats or items or multi-classing stuff or anything like that. I love books that are predominantly or have a lot of flavor that you can use to build campaigns and just, again, get those creative energies flowing. And this book does that really, really well. There's all kinds of interesting cultures. There are all kinds of interesting locations, bizarre and interesting creatures to have the characters interact with. And yeah, I just think that they've done a really solid job. I mean, the Pathfinder Lost Omens books, the Pathfinder 2nd edition books in general have all really impressed me with their quality. And this is certainly no exception. If you're looking for a very interesting campaign setting, something that's, kind of a little bit different than what you might expect for like places around Absalon or sort of like the more traditional kind of like European inspired campaign settings, you want something that's, going to be a very interesting place for your players to explore, new cultures, new concepts for them to sort of come across, then this is a book that I highly recommend. And I just highly recommend it in general. It's because of the sheer amount of flavor involved and the very small emphasis on things like feats or spells, magic items, class options. They're sprinkled throughout, but they're definitely not the main focus of this book. So because like 90% of this book is fluff or flavor, I think you could buy this and use it for, even if you're running Pathfinder 1st edition, or even if you're just running other, fantasy-based role-playing games and you want a cool location or cool setting. to base your campaigns out of, then this is a really great one to pick up. So again, I highly recommend it. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Once again, thank you to Paizo for sending this to me for the purposes of doing this review. I really enjoyed reading it. I haven't read through every single page yet, but everything that I've read so far I was really impressed with, and I got through quite a bit of it. But I didn't want to take too long to get this video out. Like I said, if you want me to do a full flip through, let me know, and by the time I get around to doing that, I will have read the book from, more or less from cover to cover. So yeah, thank you again to Paizo for sending it to me, and thank you to everyone who's taken time out of their day to watch this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've picked this up. What are some of the cool ideas that you've come up with for adventures, campaigns, or campaign arcs, or even just encounters that you thought of while looking through the book? What locations do you want to sort of base your adventures around? Stuff like that. Let me know, basically, if you pick this up, how you've been able to integrate it into your ongoing campaigns. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. Take care.